And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Alright, I'm not a big fan of Bugs in general, but we're talking about Bugs, the card game here, designed by Keith Myers. It's a game in which you're basically trying to wipe out a swarm of bugs. Now, notoriously, card games like this really have nothing to do with their theme. I guess it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's difficult to have a theme match it. In this one, the theme is kind of there, because there's this swarm of bugs which gets bigger, and this game teaches mathematics. Woohoo! Let's look at the game, though, before I tell you my final opinion. The game takes place around a deck of cards that has different bugs on. Lovely, right? On your turn, the cards are dealt out to the players, and then one player plays cards in front of them of the same number, and which is the same type. So here they would say, I play a swarm of 2. The next player can either add to that swarm and say, well, now it's a swarm of 3, or they can beat it with another swarm as long as the total number is bigger. For example, here they can say, now the swarm is 12. They play 2 6s. Or they can play one of the special cards that either reverses or wipes out the current swarm, or basically skips them and goes to the next player. As soon as a player cannot play a swarm of cards, something that will beat what's out there, or one of the special cards, they have to take all these into their hand. And then play continues. If there is a whole pile of cards out on the board, and you, let's say this is 16, and for some reason I can't beat 16, so I take both these cards into my hand, I cannot immediately play them out again. However, if you have all the bugs of a certain type, for example, there is 1 praying mantis. There are 9 cockroaches. If you have all of the bugs of one type at the beginning of your turn, then you may wipe them out, show them all to your opponents, and put them in a discard pile. And then you go off again. Now, I'm going to stop right here and say this is such a headachy major problem with this game. First of all, the rules are very, very useless. Trying not to rip them here. They did not explain how swarms were placed on the table, and do you put the swarm on top of someone else's swarm? Do you discard them when play? Also, they say when you have all the cards of a swarm in your hand, well, there's 9 1s, there's 8 2s, there's 7 3s, there's 6 4s, but how are we supposed to remember that? There's no reference card. There's nothing. I'm just supposed to remember that there's 3 7s. Well, you say, well, you just remembered it now. Yeah, but if you're playing a casual game with people, you're supposed to memorize how many there are each color. They couldn't have bothered to put that number on the card itself if it's such an important feature of the game. And I'm not seeing the strategy here at all. Now, I'm sure I'm going to get emails from people who tell me that there's definitely a way to play it, but good night. You play the special cards when you have them. You play cards when you have them, and it just devolves into a game of really, really boringness. But that's what it is here, this deck of cards. So the goal is to get rid of all the cards out of your hand, and you win the round. There's many games like that. Whether they're trick-taking games or ladder-climbing games. I'm not really sure what category this one fits into, other than big, convoluted mess card games. But it's not a big convoluted mess. There's only so many of the cards. It's just that when you play it, you sit there and say, is this it? Really? I play 4 of this card, you play 3 of that, you play a skip, you play a reverse. What is this, Uno? I'm just not really seeing the point or the fun of this game. So, oh man, I was hoping for more because Bug sounds like a really neat theme, but it's not here, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.